Jake was a man with nothing left. No money, no future, just a broken-down station and an old dog. But when Rex, his loyal canine, uncovered a secret buried deep beneath the junkyard, everything changed. Suddenly, Jake wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for a $200 million fortune and his life. Jake had always imagined his life would end with a purpose. But now, sitting on the worn-out porch of his late uncle's junk station, he felt like a man lost in time. His military days were behind him, and the scars of war ran deeper than just the physical wounds. Financial ruin was creeping in fast, and Jake had no clue how he was supposed to rebuild from this. The letters had all come with that same bittersweet tone, an inheritance. But what had he inherited? A junk station in the middle of nowhere, a broken-down relic of a life-long past. As the wind whipped through the weeds that overtook the cracked concrete, Jake glanced around, feeling the weight of the place pressing down on him. A faded sign above read, "Vance's Service Station," but there was nothing left to service. It looked abandoned, forgotten, much like the man who'd left it to him. He thought about just walking away, leaving the station to decay as it had for years. But something about it tugged at him, like a piece of unfinished business. And then there was Rex, the old German shepherd who'd come with the inheritance. The dog didn't bark much, just sat quietly beside Jake, watching him. The loyalty in those eyes was a stark contrast to the emptiness that surrounded them. Rex was all Jake had left, and he wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. Jake's days quickly fell into a dull rhythm. Mornings were spent sweeping away the dust and grime that had settled on the old station, and afternoons were filled with repairs that never seemed to hold. The pump out front was long broken. The garage was full of rusted tools and forgotten debris, and the weeds that overtook the parking lot seemed to mock him at every turn. He tried fixing the roof, but the holes were too many, and the walls had long given in to the relentless weather. No one stopped by anymore. Not for gas, not for help, not for anything. But Rex? Rex was always there, tail wagging when Jake would show up in the morning, as if he were still hopeful, still expecting someone to walk through the station doors. The dog had the kind of quiet presence that made everything feel a little less hopeless. Jake often found himself talking to Rex, spilling his frustration over the state of things, the loneliness, the financial pressure. The dog would listen, his ears perking up now and then, his gaze unwavering. It felt almost as if Rex understood more than he let on. Despite the endless work, Jake was beginning to realize that the station wasn't just a burden. It was all he had left. And in a strange way, it was keeping him tethered to the world. It was a place where the memories of his uncle lingered, even if those memories were clouded by neglect. Every morning, Jake felt like he was sinking deeper into the past. But Rex? He was the one constant, the one thing that seemed to hold them both together. It was a typical afternoon when it happened. Jake was bent over the old workbench, fiddling with an ancient carburetor, his mind wandering. Rex had been acting strangely for days, restless, almost agitated, constantly circling the back of the station. Jake had dismissed it at first, chalking it up to the dog's age and maybe the boredom of having nothing but junk to sniff around. But today, Rex's behavior was different. The German shepherd was standing near an old, rusted storage container at the far edge of the property, staring at it intently. His ears were perked up, his tail stiff, and he was growling softly, low in his throat. Jake stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans, and walked over. "Rex, what's wrong with you?" Jake muttered, but the dog didn't respond, only continued to growl, his focus unwavering. It wasn't like Rex to act this way, especially in the dead quiet of the junkyard. Curious, Jake walked closer, inspecting the container. The metal was covered in layers of grime, but there was something off about it. It looked untouched for years, like it had been forgotten or ignored. But Rex didn't seem to think so. Jake knelt down beside the container and ran his hand along the side, his fingers brushing against a cold, smooth surface, something under the dirt. He tried to pry the lid open, but it was stuck. With a grunt, he pushed harder. After a few moments of struggling, the lid creaked open just enough to reveal an old, yellowed map wedged inside. His heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just any map. There were strange symbols and markings he didn't recognize. And at the top, in bold letters, was one word: Vance. Jake's stomach tightened as Rex sat beside him, eyes locked onto the map. The dog's intense stare seemed to confirm what Jake was beginning to fear. This was no coincidence. Something far bigger than he had ever imagined was buried beneath the dust and rust of this forgotten station. Jake stared at the map in his hands, the creases on his brow deepening as he tried to make sense of what he was holding. The symbols didn't match anything he had seen before, and the markings, lines that seemed to connect different parts of the station, were puzzling. But the word Vance at the top of the map stood out like a neon sign. That was his uncle's name, the name of the man who had left him this station. It had to mean something. Rex sat at his side, still watching the map with unblinking eyes, as if waiting for Jake to figure it out. Jake swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. He had no idea what this map could lead to, but a nagging feeling told him it wasn't just an old piece of paper. Determined to find out, Jake traced the map's markings, following the path it outlined. The first location led him to the back of the station, under the floorboards of an old shack that hadn't been touched in decades. With Rex at his heels, Jake pried up the boards, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, covered in dust and cobwebs, was a small chest. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside the chest were stacks of old papers, some torn, others yellowed with age. As he rifled through them, one page caught his eye, a ledger filled with names and dollar amounts, cryptic descriptions, and dates going back to the Prohibition era. The amounts were staggering, millions of dollars in assets, hidden away in secret vaults. Jake's breath hitched. This wasn't just an old treasure. This was a map to a fortune, $200 million, to be exact. The realization struck him like a thunderclap. His uncle had been involved in something far more dangerous than just a rundown station. This was a covert operation from the past, a web of riches buried beneath the station Jake had inherited. His hands were shaking now, the weight of it all sinking in. What had his uncle gotten involved in? And why had he left this treasure for Jake to find? The answers were just beginning to unravel, and Jake wasn't sure if he was ready for what was coming next. But Rex, ever loyal, was by his side, as if ready to face whatever lay ahead. Jake's discovery didn't stay a secret for long. At first, it was subtle, an unfamiliar car parked on the side of the road near the station, its occupants glancing over at the property, then quickly driving away. Jake thought nothing of it, assuming it was just a passerby. But soon, the visits became more frequent, more deliberate. And Rex knew something was off. The dog's behavior was no longer just strange, it was urgent. Every morning, Rex would sit by the front door, ears perked, staring down the road, growling low in his throat whenever a car approached. Jake could sense the tension rising, the unease building in the pit of his stomach. It wasn't long before someone knocked on the door. A man in a dark suit, sharp and polished, stood there with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm looking for Vance," the man said smoothly. "I believe he left something important behind." Jake's heart skipped a beat. How did he know about the treasure? "You're looking for the wrong person," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. But the man didn't buy it. "I think you and I both know that's not true," the man said, his smile tightening. "Where is it?" Jake felt his throat go dry as the man's eyes narrowed. Rex growled again, louder this time, sensing the danger. Jake's instinct kicked in. They were after the secret, and they wouldn't stop until they got it. The pressure was mounting. Each day, the man in the suit returned, bringing with him more questions and demands, growing more insistent with every visit. Jake knew the game had changed. He had gone from struggling to make ends meet to now being chased by shadowy figures who wanted nothing more than the secret hidden beneath his uncle's station. But it wasn't just the treasure they were after, it was the power it could give them. And Jake wasn't sure he could protect it much longer. Late one night, as the moon hung heavy in the sky, Rex led Jake to a hidden corner of the junkyard. It was the same place where he had uncovered the map, but this time, the dog's behavior was different. Rex was acting anxious, pacing, his paws scraping the ground. He stopped in front of a pile of old crates and barked once, sharp and urgent. "Jake, confused and exhausted, knelt beside the crates, digging through the debris until his fingers brushed against another hidden compartment. He pulled it open, finding a folded note with his uncle's handwriting. His hand shook as he read the message. "If you're reading this, they've found you. The treasure is meant for something greater. Don't sell it. Don't let them win. Use it for good." The weight of the decision hit him like a freight train. Sell it, and he could walk away with millions. He could escape this life, leave the junkyard behind. But his uncle's words echoed in his mind. Use it for good. In that moment, Jake realized what he had to do. He couldn't let the treasure fall into the wrong hands. This wasn't just about money. It was about protecting something far more important. And Rex, his loyal companion, was by his side, ready to face whatever came next. Jake stood at the entrance of the station, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The decision had been made. He wouldn't sell the treasure. He would honor his uncle's wishes, using the fortune to rebuild what had been lost, not just for himself, but for the community that had long been forgotten. With Rex by his side, Jake began to see the station not as a burden, but as a foundation. It would be more than just a junkyard. It would be a place of hope, a place where lives could be changed. As the dog sat beside him, tail wagging, Jake smiled.